This is the miniseries Tales of the Walking Dead, Episode 3. A woman will do anything to protect her daughter from the dangers of the zombie apocalypse. Brooke was preparing for an evening at the restaurant. Dressed up, she stood at the stern of a riverboat when a young girl, Lydia, appeared. She proudly showed off her dress. Moments later, her mother, Dee, arrived. Brooke tried to compliment the outfit, but Dee felt uncomfortable. She found it strange to play dress-up under such circumstances and doubted whether it was a good idea. Brooke assured her that the guards were on duty, patrolling the area all week. The party on the riverboat was in full swing. Lydia continued to show off her beautiful dress while Dee sat at the bar. The bartender, Billy, asked her why she wasn't sitting with her child. When Dee said nothing, Billy asked another question. Why didn't she try to spend more time with her daughter? Then he added that she didn't seem like someone who was trying to create even the slightest sense of normalcy in the zombie apocalypse. Brooke did everything she could to maintain the atmosphere of the old life. Billy noted that many people were willing to do anything just to get into this party. Dee stepped out onto the deck and looked toward the forest where zombies roamed. Brooke joined her, saying that they were just the dead, wandering aimlessly around. Dee admitted that she didn't trust Billy. Brooke smirked. According to her, Dee didn't trust anyone at all. Changing the subject, Brooke reminded Dee that Lydia's birthday was coming up and suggested throwing her a party. It had been over a year since they arrived, and in her opinion, that was enough time to get used to life on the boat. However, Dee worried that Lydia's expectations were too high. At that moment, Dee suddenly pulled out a knife, forcing Brooke to duck. A fishing net had been lowered above them, and a zombie was caught in it. Dee swiftly stabbed it, and its blood dripped onto Brooke. A vision surfaced in Dee's memory the moment she became Alpha. Her own words echoed in her mind. I was 9 years old when I ended my father's existence. He deserved it. She then recalled the story of how she and Lydia's father were trapped in a basement when the world collapsed. The next day, Brooke was suddenly interrupted from her tasks. The community was discussing the disappearance of Mr. Langston. Brooke asked Dee if she had seen him. Dee remembered meeting him at the bar the previous evening and suggested speaking with Billy since he had been serving him. Billy confirmed that Mr. Langston had spent the entire night there, was drunk, and could barely stand. However, he said that another person had escorted Langston back to his room. Mitch believed they should take a boat and search for him in the swamp, but Nolan argued that if Langston had left, it meant he wanted to go. Brooke agreed with him, but Jenna couldn't believe they weren't even going to look for him. Ultimately, Brooke decided to call a meeting and inform everyone about what had happened. Dee overheard the conversation and hid nearby. Later, Lydia was learning how to properly set the table. She told her mother that Brooke thought she needed a new dress for the garden party. Lydia enthusiastically talked about how she liked fairies, but Dee didn't understand why they kept setting the table as if nothing was happening. At one point, Dee discreetly hid a knife in her pocket. Lydia noticed and asked why she needed it. Dee explained that it was just in case. Lydia realized that her mother wanted to leave and suggested that she do so without her. However, Dee sharply replied that she wouldn't survive alone. Lydia took it differently. She thought her mother believed she was doomed anyway. The girl said she had friends, and an angry Dee stormed outside. As Dee walked past Billy, she noticed him throwing something into the water. She asked if it was a mirror, but he pretended not to understand what she was talking about. Sensing something was off, Dee called Brooke and the others, explaining that she believed Billy was signaling someone in the forest with a mirror. Billy laughed, calling it nonsense, and invited them to check. Though they wouldn't find the mirror anyway, as he had dropped it in the water when he realized he was being watched. From the upper deck, Nolan scanned the surroundings and confirmed that there was no one in the forest, only zombies wandering among the trees. Dee reminded everyone that Billy was the last person to see Mr. Langston alive and that he had only been here for 3 weeks. Brooke asked what Dee intended to do about it. Without hesitation, Dee declared that they needed to get rid of him. Billy noticed the knife in her pocket, panicked, and screamed that she wanted to kill him. Without waiting for a response, he jumped overboard. Brooke, enraged, remarked that it was no wonder Lydia was afraid of her. Those words infuriated Dee. She demanded that Brooke never speak to her daughter again. If that didn't happen, she threatened to leave. Lydia accidentally witnessed their argument and ran away in fear. Dee entered their room trying to speak as gently as possible to calm her down, only to find that the room was empty. Brooke approached from behind and said that Lydia just needed some space. Dee ignored her words and sharply demanded to know where her daughter was. Brooke simply responded with a question of her own. Why was Lydia afraid of her own mother? Furious, Dee pulled out her knife and demanded that Brooke tell her where the girl was hiding. Their tense confrontation was suddenly interrupted by a scream. Someone was dead, only reinforcing Dee's certainty that she had to find Lydia immediately. The group was shocked to discover that Billy had survived his dive into the water. Dee had been right. He was dangerous. Now he was holding everyone at gunpoint and ordered them to kneel. Billy explained that with Mr. Langston gone, a spot had opened up, but now 6 more people needed to be removed so his own men could take their places. He then reflected on how Brooke was trying to maintain order on the boat and didn't understand why she insisted on letting people on board who, in his opinion, had already given up. Then he moved on to the next step, deciding who should die. He turned to Dee, blaming her for ruining his plan. He demanded to know where she and Lydia were. Todd stepped in and lied, saying that Dee had gone for a run, but Billy didn't believe him. He knew their routine too well. He ordered his men to find them. One of them found Brooke and was about to kill her, but Billy told him to be gentle. He believed they needed strong people to build their community and suggested that Brooke continue being nice while he took care of the rest. To prove his dominance, he shot one of the group members. Brooke tried to stop the killings, suggesting they find a way to accommodate everyone. However, Billy ignored her words and sent another person to the afterlife. Nolan chose the cowardly way out. He offered to sacrifice his own wife, claiming she does nothing. Jenna resisted and begged Billy to kill Nolan instead of her. In the end, everyone agreed to help Billy find Dee and Lydia, everyone except Todd, who turned out to be the only decent person in the group. While the group argued over who would be the next victim, Dee seized the moment. She silently approached the man holding Brooke and neutralized him with a knife. Wasting no time, she then shot another of Billy's men. She quickly untied a boat and jumped into the water. Panic erupted on the riverboat. Screams, fighting, gunfire. Meanwhile, Dee tried to calm Lydia, who was crying and begging Brooke to run. But Dee sharply cut her off, reminding her who her mother was and ordering her to obey. Reaching the shore, Dee fought off zombies. At one point, one fell on top of her, pinning her down. She opened up on the body and hid Lydia underneath it to keep her unnoticed. From the shore, they watched as someone from the boat made it onto land, only to be immediately caught and devoured by zombies. Then she ran her hand over the dead, leaving traces on Lydia's face, and ordered her to imagine she didn't exist. She promised that no one and nothing would ever own her. They continued their journey deeper into the forest. Soon, Dee spotted Brooke. Before Lydia could see her, her mother pulled a pair of headphones from her bag, placed them on her daughter, and ordered her to stay put until she returned. Dee stood before Brooke and reminded her that she had promised Lydia the whole world, only to take it away from her. Brooke blamed Dee for all the deaths on the riverboat. However, Dee firmly stated that if she hadn't acted, they would have killed Lydia as well. "I did what a real mother would do," she said coldly. Dee pointed a gun at Brooke's head, but at that moment, Lydia ran up and begged her not to kill her. Dee shoved her daughter aside and aimed again. Lydia, covering her ears, curled into a ball and began singing. That moment made Dee lower her weapon. She approached Lydia, soothing her, and repeated that she wasn't going to upkill Brooke. "Death is too easy for her," she added before dragging a knife across Brooke's face, leaving a deep scar. "This is my mark. Wherever you go, it will remind you of how you failed my little girl," Dee whispered venomously. Still in shock from what had happened, Lydia said she wanted to go back to the riverboat. But Dee firmly stated that from now on, it was just the two of them. "You got what you wanted. You wanted Brooke to fail," Lydia shouted. But Dee just shook her head. "Everything she taught you was a lie." In despair, Lydia asked where her father was. She didn't want to stay with her mother. Dee looked at her and calmly said that her father had been weak. "You mustn't be like him," she added. Continuing their journey, they arrived at a trailer park. While searching through one of the RVs, Dee found a tea set and smiled. "Maybe we can have our own little party," she said. But Lydia was no longer listening. She stepped outside and saw people. At first, she thought they were survivors from the riverboat, but they turned out to be zombies. Dee quickly ordered her to step back. As Lydia hesitated, her mother grabbed her by the wrist. "It's time to learn how to survive," Dee said firmly. She wanted Lydia to learn how to kill zombies, but the girl, terrified, refused to take the knife. "I can't do it," she cried. Then without hesitation, Dee covered the zombies with fabric and neutralized them through it. After finishing them off, Dee realized that Lydia had run away. She immediately gave chase. Somewhere deep inside, Dee felt herself fully transforming into Alpha. "We are all we have. We do what we think is right, even if it hurts those we love," she whispered. Finally, she found Lydia under a tree. "They're calling me. I can hear the fairies. They want to take me," the girl whispered. She begged her mother to let her go, then hugged her and confessed how much she loved her. Dee held back tears and said she was tired. "Close your eyes," she whispered. Then she pulled out her knife. But before anything could happen, a whisper filled the air. "We see you." Lydia opened her eyes. She wasn't imagining it. The trees were speaking. Dee jumped to her feet, pulled out her gun, and shouted, "Who's there?" From the darkness, a group of people emerged, wearing masks made from zombie skin. Their leader, a woman named Hera, slowly removed her mask. "Quiet," she whispered. Then she struck Dee, knocking her unconscious. The story ended with Dee, now fully alpha, realizing the inevitability of her fate. "That was the end of Dee, and the beginning of me," she whispered, lifting the mask that once belonged to Hera. She looked at it with sadness and added, "And then I met you, and you showed me love." So what did you think of episode 3 of the Tales of the Walking Dead miniseries? Subscribe now. Recaps of all episodes are coming soon.